Students are not stupid.
I don't ask questions because I don't understand anything written here.
The traditional syllabus as we know it today sounds like a rule book. It's like rules and regulations. The classroom space is not a courtroom.
We're looking at syllabus as a dialogue and not as a here you go, take it and leave it.
What have you done to learnerize a syllabus?
You as an instructor, you're working hand in hand with the students.
And I asked the students to choose
A space that celebrates flexibility, empowerment, and agreement.
Welcome back, everyone, to our podcast, Relearning to Learn. Very excited to continue our conversation. In our first 6 episodes, we looked at the theory behind learnerization. Why would somebody want to learnerize? What is learnerization? Who's involved in this process? This series and the next episodes will be looking at some of the specifics, the nitty-gritties. How do we implement learnerization? If you have a course, what do you do? And today's episode is focused on the syllabus, moving from contract to compass. And so for today's discussion, I have with me my distinguished guests and dear friends, Dr. Mohammed Mudathir Ali, senior researcher in the Faculty of Islamic Studies at Hamad Bin Khalifa University in Doha. I have Miss Aya Zaina, interior designer and TA at Virginia Commonwealth University, and Dr. Akinade, professor of theology at Georgetown University in Qatar. Welcome, dear friends. So as we start, I actually have my own little story about the syllabus. This happened a few years back. Typically, and I've been told by my administration, when you teach a new class, make sure that the students understand the syllabus. So I would always take time in the first period to break it down. I'd ask the students, please read this. What does it mean to you? Come up with any questions? And after several semesters of this, and students really not having any questions, I finally said, all right, we're not going to leave class until you give me some questions or some feedback. So finally, one student said, all I ever really care about are the grades. How do I get the grades? So I thought, okay, that's where somebody's thinking. I asked another student, and they're like, I don't ask questions because I don't understand anything written here. Like, ah. And a third person says, this syllabus has nothing to do with me or my life. And I don't even understand why we have to understand any of this. In fact, this course is not even a course that I wanted to take in the first place. So I was really struck by the disconnect between the syllabus as I was getting it and the syllabus as students were experiencing it. So on that note, I want to open up to our first question. What do you feel is the problem or the challenge of the traditional syllabus? And are there ways that we could look at learnerizing this?
perhaps there's nothing wrong with the syllabus. Perhaps it is our way of engaging with the syllabus and creating that engagement for the students. Perhaps that's what's wrong. The people who designed the traditional syllabus, they designed it in accordance with their own realities, their own sensitivities, and what they wanted to achieve. So I really don't think that there's anything outrageously wrong with that syllabus, but you can certainly tweak the syllabus here and there to make it more effective and engaging for our student population today, whether those students are in the universities, colleges, schools, or even in the industry, people working in the industry. So the syllabus needs to be tweaked and changed in accordance with the requirements and the realities of time. And it needs to be made more engaging.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. But I'm wondering, if I've been handed a syllabus by my administration and they're saying, teach this, it's almost like it's a legal document. You're talking about tweaking. So I'm curious, um, how does that tweaking take place? What does that consist of? Am I empowered to actually change the wording on the syllabus, or is it something else? And I might just take Dr. Akin on that. Right?
Yeah. So to follow up on that, I think is actually setting the right tone. So is about setting the tone, or setting the tone that is going to engender trust and is going to engender confidence in the classroom. So the traditional syllabus as we know it today, or as we have it today, it sounds like a rule book. It's like rules and regulations, rules about how to succeed, how not to fail. These rules and regulations about, oh, watch out for this so that you don't mess up. But the classroom space is not a courtroom. It's not a court of law. So we need to create a space or we need to set a tone, encourages confidence and s- provides the capacity to co-create and to build something together. So for me, it's about setting the right tone, and the tone must be about trusting trusting the moment and trusting the space that we have together.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to take that. It looked like you wanted to add something.
Um, I think um, the students need to be given space, and no change comes overnight. So you need to create confidence and trust, like Dr. Atkins said, not only amongst the students, but also with the administration, that the change that you're looking forward to is for the benefit of the institution, the faculty, and the learners and the students.
Okay, so
So
you're
that trust building perhaps is very, very important. And the ability to show that it's going to show colors,
show color. I like that term. Give me an example. What does that mean, showing colors?
producing results.
Mm, okay. So I want to bring you in as a recent grad,
Yeah.
and I've had the privilege to teach you. And so you were probably, I'm pretty sure, had that experience where I said, tell me about the syllabus.
Right. And I was one of those students that stayed quiet.
Yes, thank you. And now that you're a TA, you're also on the other side where you're actually implementing a syllabus.
Right.
So what are your thoughts about these challenges? We've heard the ability to tweak, create a conversation, create space. What are your thoughts?
I mean, we're saying there's nothing wrong with the syllabus, and I completely echo that. But I think we're also saying that we're still hearing inactive responses. So I think what we're looking at syllabus as a dialogue and not as a here you go, take it and leave it. And that's what we're going to do. And for me, when I look at the syllabus, I look at it in two branches. Syllabus, it consists of logistics and it consists of topic. So you have topic, it's a class of theory, it's a class of design, it's a class of geography. And so that's a part where that's, maybe set in stone. But then you have the other side, which is the logistics. And then how do you have, what students care about, or what I think I would, first thing that kind of pops up is what's the course schedule? So maybe have that in the beginning. So maybe it's just about initiating talk from the get go. Here's the class schedule. What do you guys think of it? We have a thought. Am I willing to, can I have a conversation about this? Is this something that I can be flexible with? Is this something that I can't be flexible with? And I think just changing order, initiating dialogue within the syllabus it just doesn't become a hand me down from a high down, but it also becomes a dialogue and a conversation as well.
That is really powerful. And as you were talking, I had this interesting kind of metaphor pop into my head. And it was this idea of how, and I know a number of us in this space are researchers or scholars of religion, and we deal with holy books. And obviously, when you study a holy book, there are the words, there's the text. And almost any tradition, if not all traditions, will say this text is sacred, no changing, no alteration, right? But everything is in the application and the interpretation. So when I read something in a holy text, how does it look in real life?
Mm.
And it sounds like the syllabus in some ways is like that. We've got our sacred text from the institution, and we're not saying throw that out, but we're saying, okay, what does it mean? What are its implications for myself as a learner, for myself as an instructor, for the institution? So that's going to lead me into my next question, which is the nitty gritty or the specifics around creating spaces you've talked about, or the tweaking that you've talked about, and also the conversation with administration, or even the let's say the ordering of elements, or the emphasis we put on elements. And I'll turn it back to you, Aya, for this. Uh, what have you done to learnerize a syllabus in a course that you're currently engaged in?
Now, for starters, syllabus is one of the most boring sections. And I think just making that engaging. And I think for me, like just an example while you were talking that kind of brought up to mind policies. It's one of the most unengaging topics. And maybe the policies about examinations are going to be in note taking, right? Or they're going to be questions that you're going to have to kind of elaborate and reflect. So, a strategy that we can be discussing in class as a group, are we taking this class as note taking? What are the steps or the strategies that I can take to really understand this class? I'm not sure if that's translating right, but what I'm trying to say is that it becomes more of a conversation on how to work with this class. What are we getting out of this class? Where is my voice? You're not just giving me information, but I'm able to understand and translate it in my own terms to kind of reflect what I need to be doing in class. And that's why the syllabus is there. It is the most boring section, in my opinion, but it's the most important. And if we can onboard, like, make it a little bit more engaging, we're able to kind of understand what we need from it. And it becomes one of the most essential tools. And it's there for a reason.
Thank you. It sounds like you're asking us to activate the syllabus rather than keeping it as a dead document, but create questions around it. And how do we make these elements of the syllabus, i.e., the course, work for us as learners? That's what I'm getting. Dr. Akin.
Yeah, that's good. So in terms of what Dr. Mohammed talked about, so Dr. Mohammed talked about tweaking, and I can relate to this, you see, and just give you an example that in a section on policies, so you have a section on policies so this is even connected to language. So instead of defining this as or calling these policies, you can actually call it community agreement. So community agreement in itself evokes that sense of trust, empowerment. And it's like we're building this sense of ijma, consensus, agreement together. And that's very powerful within a classroom space. So this is about the affirmation of the agency of the students, and to actually see that you as an instructor, you're working hand in hand with the students to build this sense of agreement and going back to the word ijma, consensus.
As I heard you say that, I just had this image in my mind of this classroom, and we've heard this word before, co-creation. So you have the document, but at the same time, you're coming in as a group and you're saying, hey, how are we going to implement this?
Mhm.
What does this look like? And do we agree to this? We create a community agreement. Very powerful. Dr. Muhammad, what would you add to this?
I really don't think there's much to add to what Dr. Akin just said. That was very, very powerful. Uh, but I would have been trying to imagine uh, what I once did was when I made the syllabus, I put in a number of topics and I asked the students to choose.
Mm.
Mm,
So you choose the topics that you want in a specific week. It made me do a lot more work.
mm,
I had to read a lot. more for that and prepare for that. But I felt that sense of fulfillment amongst the students by just making this very, very apparently trivial but significant move.
Mm.
You handed them ownership for a part of their education
Agency and ownership.
Precisely.
within the context of your class. That's beautiful.
It reminds me of setting a menu. You know, I love to cook. My Italian heritage comes out. And what better than taking an order from the family members in this case or friends, and then making something that really satisfies? Yes, it takes more work, but the result, the happiness that comes through, and my sense of purpose and purposefulness really. So thank you for that suggestion. That's really powerful. So on that note, I want to move us towards our final takeaways, right? So we've been talking about some specifics. We've been talking about cases where students feel this disconnect. We want to create community. So what if for our viewers out there, whether it's faculty, whether it's students in a course that may not feel empowered to talk about these things, what are some suggestions or advice that you would give if they are getting ready for or currently dealing with a syllabus that they don't feel is working for them or something, there's a breakdown? What are your thoughts? What are some final suggestions, I'd say?
I can tap in. Yeah, I think it's a matter of listening to both sides. And I think for me, the syllabus is the hardest part to learnerize, to be honest, because it's such a rigid structure in and within itself. So to learnerize such a structure where we're saying co-create, we're saying there's going to be a lot of voices, there's going to be a lot of opinions. And so how do you navigate that? I think a listen from both the instructor and the students. And, for there to be compromise where a student might be like, that might not work for me now, but down the lane, they kind of see the value in it. And vice versa for the instructor as well. So I think being able to compromise and listen, give space and leeway, but to even do that is to build trust and community, to have that mutual respect and to have that mutual knowing that, they're there for me to support me and it's not the other way around. So I think just having a kind of bonding with your instructor that I'm not just here in class to get about there's a whole human around it. And I think, you know, isolating or alienating an instructor or vice versa can sometimes bring about, a lack of community and a lack of even fun, a lack of fun.
So I'm really hearing conversation
Absolutely.
and community. Thank you. Dr. Muhammad, what are your thoughts?
Yes, it's all about creating space and letting the student body co-create. Whether you want to do it at the individual level or create groups within the class, so everybody feels that they've chipped in, uh, and in the creation of the syllabus itself.
Wonderful. So even that idea of a differentiated syllabus where you could have groups within the bigger group that are working towards an understanding and an application. And that might be around things like learning outcomes, perhaps, or like you said, specific units that make sense to them.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So what about
Thank you.
thinking about a space that celebrates flexibility, empowerment, and agreement? So that's a very good way of looking at this. So I think is about building together. I keep saying that over and over again. So building it itself is fun. So you talked about cooking. So cooking is about putting things together. So it's not about disengagement, but about putting things together, about making connections. That's
Mhm.
very powerful for me.
And as you're speaking, I had a thought. What would that look like at the beginning of a course? You know, you're teaching something in the fall, for instance, and it's the first day or the first week. How does that happen?
So it's going back to stepping into the classroom and setting the right tone right from the beginning. And students are not stupid. Students they're very smart. So they understand when they understand what's going on, and they know that we're in this together. So it's about setting the right tone right from the beginning.
Amazing, amazing. So I really want to thank you all. As we're wrapping this up, I've heard so many amazing principles. I get your spirit that you're there for the learner and that it's not just this dead document, but in fact, it's the beginning of learning. It starts a conversation. It creates community, agreement, empowerment, and creating that space of trust. And I think when that happens and we have those conversations, what we end up having is an administration that sees the transformation and trusts us. So in the end, we've really created trust at all levels. So I want to thank you all for being part of this dynamic conversation. And I'll look forward to our next episode as we move along the path of learnerizing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Shukran.